Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick. Welcome to Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on planet Earth today, reclaiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal, but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations will speak to your spirituality, sensuality and soul. Listen to their stories and hear how they are in service to the world. Let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. My guests on this week's Her Conversations are Nyahsa and Reuben, who work together at their company, the Ascension Seed. They serve humanity by healing through a variety of modalities, including sound therapy, channeling, meditation and movement. More recently, they answered the call to assist with the unhealed trauma wound of racism and created their program, Reveal to Heal. This is an online program that was open to and ultimately integrated the healing experience of participants of all colours. During our conversation, I find out about what they learned from the first round of this programme and also the experiences of those that took part. I also asked them to share their story about what it takes to attract and sustain a twin flame union. But as always, I begin by asking my guests. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel you're most her?
Well, thank you for having us here. It's
No
lovely
problem.
to be with you, Carol, on your Her podcast. And so tuning in to Higher Energetic Resonance. Lovely vibration of that acronym. And when do we most feel her? I'd say when we're serving, like I was saying the other day to Reuben that being in service takes you into your higher self, like you just are able to embody, the highest expression of you in that moment, because there's no other reality that you want to allow into that space of being a guide, being a teacher, supporting others to remember, their essence and their truth. It just calls you into a space where you can get yourself out of the way and you can just allow your channel to become clear, and you can allow your heart to open and your energy to align, even if you have other things happening elsewhere in your life. Like sometimes, especially with having a baby, we're really tired and there's other things going on, and we're not always able to be as centered just before we are coming to serve as we'd like to be. But it's been really amazing to see how the call to service and the kind of energetics of that mean that as soon as we start the space, we open the container, we jump online, if it's Zoom, we're able to just lock in, to our higher self, and people are able to receive us, in our fullness, in with the purity of our intention and with our highest kind of energetic expression, no matter what else is going on in our lives. So I'd say that's probably, what I feel when we're most hurt.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like personally, when I'm in a space of higher energetic resonance, I'm definitely in a space of joy and like excitement, and pleasure definitely comes into it, and definitely a sense of feeling the higher self rather than the lower self. There's a part of me that definitely gets excited with what is working through me, and the idea that it's completely beyond me what I'm being called to share in any given moment. When I can tune into like the wider vision of what I'm doing and why it creates joy within my body, it goes way beyond just me, if that makes sense. So that's, I guess, when I feel most high, and I feel in that space, because I just feel, there's excitement and joy coming out for me in those moments, and the energy is then received by me and whoever else I'm sharing the energy with in much more natural way, and it can be much more easily received and absorbed. So that's for me what I feel. It's definitely a space of excitement, joy, and kind of playfulness. And to be honest, I feel like even when you're doing really deep, hard kind of shadow work and things that require a lot of inner reflection and kind of introspection, joy and pleasure can not always seem like something that can even come into that space, but it definitely will help us go into those kind of more gloomy, dark spaces. So on reflection, I definitely feel like, it's about pleasure and presence and openness, really, just general openness to whatever is being called in any given moment.
Amazing.
Yeah. And nature, last thing, like nature always brings us into naturally like such a high frequency, like just the go-to for resonance and alignment and clarity and everything. Really, it's just nature just gives us so much. I'm so grateful for nature and the elements and just Mama Earth.
Perfect. And what I wanted to say as well is to you, Reuben, because when I first started this podcast, it's like almost 3 years ago now. I'm coming up to like 100 episodes.
Congrats.
And yeah, like it's been a road. It's been a road of learning and keeping consistent. But initially what I did was like her conversations, it was tools for the awakening woman, and I've been really looking over the branding of the whole thing and opening it up and not having it be just specifically me speaking to women. So I want to just like let you know that you are the first man that I have ever interviewed.
I definitely had that feeling. I thought that would be the case for sure. I didn't say international. The other time, like maybe you should just do it, like, but then I was like, no, we do all our interviews together, so it's probably nice that we do it. But I definitely did have a feeling that would be the first male to be in a podcast. So what an honor! Thank you so much.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Good, and it couldn't have been better actually, because I think the kind of two aspects of things that drew me to you was one, because of the work that you're doing in terms of the Reveal and Heal program that you've done recently and what that means, but also with your union, like you said, you two come together, and it is like an exemplification of, in my eyes anyway, just kind of having stalked you online for a little while, it is like the exemplification of a twin flame relationship. And I just would like for you to just like elaborate to whatever extent you're willing to share as to what that actually looks like in terms of how you have to like clear yourself individually, work that you have to do individually to make space for that, because it's one of those kind of buzzwords that kind of like flies around the community, and people aren't necessarily really clear about what it looks like. If anything, it's like, you meet your twin flame and they go off on the other side of the world and it's a world of pain. I'm like, is it? But let me speak to a twin flame couple in front of me and lay it out, you guys. I'll leave it to you.
Oh, thank you.
Well, yeah, it's such always a massive thing to go into whenever anyone asks us.
People are always interested.
Yeah, people are always interested, naturally, which makes sense, of course. In order to meet each other, we definitely had to do a certain level of work on ourselves and with ourselves. And I definitely personally had got to a point in my life where I had kind of done... I definitely realized that there was a lot of seeking in relationships before, and there was parts of me that were seeking validation from external, forces and external people, other people, and I was definitely a massive absence of self-love and acceptance in my life. And it wasn't until I started going into that journey where I kind of released the need to have a partner, released the need to like have someone else kind of feel like they complete me or create that, feel that piece of in me. That was when I was energetically in resonance to meet Nyahsa. I'd literally just come out of the mindset of like, I'm not even like, of course I'm open and open to relationships, but there's no part of me that's seeking relationship. I don't yearn for like love anymore. That kind of left my energetic space. And that's when I, was a match to meeting Nyahsa. And Nyahsa, I'm sure, can say the sort of same thing, that we weren't like looking for a relationship at the time. And yeah, it was definitely the space that we're in with each other. And, of course it's a complete ongoing journey. Like when we first met with each other, it was basically like listening to somebody. It's like listening to yourself. It's like listening to the consciousness that you have, those sorts of like ideas you have about the universe and all these different things. It's like listening to it being mirrored back to you. But it wasn't like, oh, this person's so much like me. It was like, they sound like the thoughts that I think in my head, And I always say like all the things that I've been talking about and I've been excited about up until then, it was like I couldn't really I couldn't just speak about it and not embody them at the time, because someone was in front of me showing me what I deeply feel, and then would be holding me accountable in a certain type of way. So it was it was beautiful, but also scary as well, because it's like this is like the universe saying, You've been talking all this stuff. You've been having all these amazing realizations. You know, what is the next step of that? And that was obviously our relationship and what unfolded. And, you know, we've been together only for just over 2 years now, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of distortion around what it means to be in a twin flame relationship. There's a lot of projection onto, like, you know, and desire. Like, people want it because they think it's like the superior type of relationship, and there's just so much illusion about it, you know. And for me, like, I learned about twin flames like long before I was kind of spiritually conscious, you know, or I had a spiritual awakening later on in my life, but I learned about twin flames about 6 years before that. And it was like the only kind of thing that I was tuned into, but I just knew when I learned about it, I was like, oh, I know I have one of those. It was just such a deep knowing, and it was quite out of place in a way for the life I was living, because I wasn't tuning into like, oh, I'm going to have a spiritual path of service with my twin flame, and like, yeah, I can see that. But I was just like, I just have such a deep knowing, like, in my soul, that like I have this type of relationship in my life coming, you know. And so from that point onwards, whenever I have a relationship, I was like, oh, like, is this person my twin flame? And then, you know, I'd be like in the energy of love with, you know, someone, and then they'd be like, I tell them about it, and they're like, no, that's sweet, but like, no, that's not real. And I'm like, oh, that means you're not my twin flame then. You know, and I can tell like there was an energetic difference in my knowing of having a twin flame than the energy that I feel from some people of like, oh, I'm yearning for my twin flame, I really want to meet them, blah, blah, blah. Like, it wasn't like I was like, I want this so badly because it sounds great, you know. Like, it was just different. It wasn't coming from desire. And Reuben as well, when he first met me, you know, I was a kind of consciously on the twin flame journey because I knew I had a twin, but he just heard a bit about twin flames and he didn't know a lot, but he actually was the one that said to me, he's like, I don't know much about this twin flame stuff, but like, you are me, like, I know it, you are my twin, like, for sure. And I'd just come out of like a false twin relationship, like literally just at the same time, like just before I met Reuben, where I did loads of deep healing and shadow confronting and karmic clearing, and like all of my unhealthy relationship patterns, well, many of them were coming to the surface, and it was a very turbulent relationship. And I really was like, I just finally had the strength and self-love to leave, and I was like, I don't want to be in a relationship again right now. And then I meet Reuben, and then I'm like, you know, it's like a glitch in the matrix. So I'm like, I'm watching myself, like, what's going on here? Like, the way that the energy is coming through you, that's like experiencing how I am, like seeing it in someone else. It was so trippy, like it was really bizarre, like nothing I'd ever experienced before. And you know, it was almost a bit confusing to me because it's like, wait, like that's just so familiar, but it's like you're seeing yourself, you know, which isn't something that you experience like in that clearer way. You know, you can see aspects of yourself and everything and everyone, but like it was different because it was like experiencing your own unique energetic signature but coming through another. And yeah, so then, you know, that it took me a while to realize. Reuben was the one that actually said to me, and then like it took me a bit for that, you know, for that to land. And when it did, I was in ceremony, and then I got the clarity come through, and I was like, whoa. And then I was like, okay, that was my false twin. And then it became so clear, and I was like, oh my God, like this is like, I knew I was on a twin flame journey for a reason, and I've actually now met my twin. And then, yeah, within like a month, you know, the path of like, okay, we're here to serve together just came, you know, very naturally to fruition. And that is, you know, I remember when I was first learning about twin flames, true twin flames, that they're here on a mission together to spread and amplify love, and they're here to serve and heal together. And so like in that sense, you know, that's definitely been what our path has, you know, how our path has flown and unfolded. But yeah, there's still so many layers, and like, you know, though, you know, people see us and online and they think, oh, like couple goals and these guys like have the perfect relationship. Like, I just want to share, you know, like there's still like so much work that we are doing and that we have to do together. And you know, we're not always in a full alignment like with how committed we are. Like, you know, often one of the twins is you know, in a different space spiritually to the other, and sometimes that can play out with us. And you know, it's an interesting journey, because when we met at first, we were very much at that point in complete resonance with like, we're both really committed to the work, and we both want to do this self-love, and we both want to be, you know, embodied in like, you know, let's clear all our ego layers that are stopping us from being of service and stuff. So we were very much like feeding off each other. But you know, we've fallen in and out of alignment to that kind of resonance at times through our relationship, and that brings its own challenge. And it also it kind of sends you back again to be like, okay, recommit to doing this for yourself regardless of the other person. And if things are aligned for us to keep growing together, then that will naturally happen. So yeah, it's like a sense of like, well, I can impact them by just impacting
Being in
myself.
my own energy,
and like
yeah.
the more I am, you know, in alignment, then the more they are in alignment too, naturally, you know. So rather than like trying to kind of grow together, just trusting that you always are growing together, if you know what I mean. So yeah, we still like have, you know, a lot of work that we're doing, and you know, this year we've been deepening a lot, having a child, and you know, there are so many different layers to balance, because we have a business together, and you know, we're in a relationship and we have a child, you know. We're navigating all these different, you know, aspects of being, you know, kind of co-parenting and, you know, co-creating, and it's a balance, and it's a process, and we are still feel very new to it, you know. We're still learning so much, and there's still so much deeper for us to go and to grow, and yeah, we're doing that, you know, as best we can, you know, with the time that we have, which is often limited because of having a baby. And so yeah, it's not like some perfect happy ending, and like, you know, the work we had to do loads of work to get here. Before we were with each other, we both had, you know, actually lots of very difficult romantic kind of relationship experiences, loads of shadow work, loads of like unhealthy patterns, loads of karmic energy. So yeah, we had like kind of, you know, dark and difficult times to get to, you know, our relationship now, and our relationship is actually super healthy. Like we don't have any of that like toxic, you know, like we never shout, like we don't really have arguments, you know, or anything like that. It's not, we don't play out in that way, but sometimes there's tension, and there's, you know, we might speak in a way that's not so loving, and we do have that kind of processes of like kind of like mirroring and expanding consciousness together still, you know, but we've done a lot of the work before, so the deeper layers are that they're much more subtle. It's much more like about like how much love are we really allowing ourselves to be embodied in, like how are we, you know, in devotion to ourselves and therefore to each other, how much are we allowing ourselves to meet the divine in each other, and to cherish each other, and to cherish this relationship, and to really nurture the baby of the relationship, which is its own entity that needs so much care and love and devotion and presence and awareness, you know. So yeah, I mean, that's the kind of the most honest and true kind of reflection I can give of our process, like before meeting and now, and our deepening now. And to anyone who's seeking relationship and who, you know, has some sense of twin flame or not for them, like I think it's just really important to like let go of the idea of you having a twin flame. And if you do have one, then, you know, if you stay aligned to your own journey, you know, everything that's kind of aligned for you and your twin in this lifetime will manifest, you know. And not everyone's journey is the same, and like the way it happened for us isn't necessarily going to be the way it happens for you. And, you know, you might think you have a twin flame, and that doesn't necessarily mean you do, because actually apparently, you know, what I've heard and what I feel is that there aren't loads and loads of twin flames. You know, it's a unique type of energetic dynamic that, you know, is very directly related to a willingness to do deep shadow work and healing, and to be of service and in service with a partner and in partnership. So it's not just like the best type of relationship. and definitely can we let go of the illusion that everyone has a twin flame, because, you know, that I don't feel that's true, but that isn't bad either. Like, doesn't mean you don't have like a deeply aligned soulmate partnership or multiple soulmate partnerships that you're going to experience through this life, you know. It's not like people think they want a twin flame, but not everyone actually wants what it means, because that means lots of work, inner work, and like it's a unique type of path depending on your, you know, your own soul mission. And so, you know, it doesn't serve your own path and your soul unfolding to want a soul mission that isn't yours and isn't what you've chosen in this lifetime. So it's like, well, I will be fully here for what feels true and aligned for like my own path, and letting go of any conditioning that's kind of causing me to desire this thing because of what I think, rather than like, let me just be open to what is here for me and what is my own path, and beyond any of these labels and sense of hierarchy of like, this relationship is above this type, and this is like the ultimate relationship, and all of these things, which are just, you know, often ego-based illusions, you know.
Yeah. No, that's a beautiful sharing. Thank you about that. Because I think the main thing is, and this kind of comes across the board with any kind of living a conscious life, in particular, like a life of service and a life that's congruent with who you are on a soul level, is to kind of deal with your shadows, like you say, doing the individual work, dealing with, you're like asking yourself about what you're doing, whether you're doing it for service to self or service to others. You know, how far in is your ego coming in and kind of like catapulting the whole thing into a different space. And I think in particular where we are right now and this 2020 year, and what that's just like literally throwing up the entire collective shadow, and people are just not knowing where to go and what to do with it. And it's splitting communities and families and people that you thought that you kind of had like a resonance with for years, like decades. It's like then you get to this point where we're trying to get to a deeper layer, and you're just, people look like complete strangers to you, like almost overnight, and you realize, you know, people have kind of stopped at a certain point in the road. And especially when it comes, I think for me the surprise has been within the spiritual community, and for people who've been within that community and know all the words and know all the kind of the terminology and have all the accessories, and then now, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All of the beads and the crystals and the smelly stuff and the cacao. You've got all the bits, but then now when we're literally down to like bones and like like dirt and bones, right? We're literally at the dirt of everything, and everything's coming up to face us. So many people are not really that prepared for it. You know, it's forcing people to run into their different corners, or their traumas are like literally flagging them up again, and they're kind of really, and sometimes they don't even realize they're in their trauma because it feels so right, it feels so justified, and you can look around and find so many reasons why your stance is a correct stance. And in particular, and the reason that I came across you guys was for the work that you do, the race relations work as well, so Reveal to Heal, and you know, obviously that whole wound got reactivated within everyone after the George Floyd event that happened, seems like 20 years ago, but it was only like 2 months, maybe 2.5 months, that happened, and really started to like pull like schisms and pain up for people when the conversation was so difficult to have. And what I saw with the people that I knew was it was like a old wound that got activated in people of color, in particular black people, you know, because then suddenly everyone starts to like identify themselves by shade, you know what I mean, start splitting that hair. So black people in particular, but also people of color, were then just went into fight and flight mode again, and that wound got activated. And then my white brothers and sisters went into fawn mode, so they were traumatized. So there was kind of like divide of like people of like, what are we going to do about it? What's the best way to deal with it? It was like, do we do things on social media? Do we get involved in groups again? And of all the groups that seemed to, and all the offerings that were coming out at that time, yours just seemed to be the most open, in terms of the fact that you were opening it up to all colours to be in the same space together and speak about it, because it kind of split people off into different sides of the room to like deal with their wounds. I'm like, this is not necessarily how we're going to get through this. So just if you can talk more about what you created and what it brought to you, how it got brought to you, because I just think it's really important that it's time for us to move past this. You know, humanity can't go, you know, you can't have your twin flame relationship without doing the work. Humanity can't deal with this wound. This is one of our biggest shadows. We can't ascend without dealing on this level. That's how I see the correlation.
Thank you. Yeah, you touched on a lot of points there. Kind of at the beginning, sort of, yeah, you're tuning into, I guess, the wider spiritual community, which involves a lot of spiritual bypassing and kind of using higher spiritual truths to ignore the reality of life on Earth, and you know how oppression is so real for all of us, you know, more directly for people with darker skin color. But you know, the whole idea of racism is something that affects everybody, is something which we really wanted to make key in the course that came to us, that was cool to be shared through us. Yeah, we really just knew that there needed to be a space of unity to do this work. We have it, we do split the groups up for the first 2 weeks. So because there's obviously different wounds we're carrying in relation to this, the privilege we have. But yeah, we really realized that, this whole race thing, it doesn't just happen for no reason. It works. Its purpose gets brought to the surface, where the divide is even more seen. This whole thing happens, and there's this line that almost gets invisibly put in place, and then all of a sudden you don't realize, but we're on separate sides, kind of really fighting the same thing. And I definitely noticed that. I was like, even though this thing has come to the surface, and in some ways it hasn't created more division. It's just highlighted the division that was there already, but it's brought it so much to the surface that it feels almost like things are better before then, but they weren't. They were just much more, embedded into society and were very unconscious. So the way we see it is that, it's come to the surface because it's meant to come to the surface. It's time for that to be cleared. The way the direction the Earth is going into now, that's something that cannot just be operating there underneath all of our, in our unconscious. That has to be brought to the light. But we also have to marry that spiritual truth to understand how we move through that. So it's like that balance point of, honoring the highest truth of, how God sees everything as interconnected, and we're all part of each other, and there's no thing as, there's no labels, there's no such really thing as labels, but of course the labels have been put on us for a long time, so they are reality now, even in the highest truth that, there's no black and white people, brown, whatever label we've been given. The reality is that because this oppression has existed for so long, this has manifest as a reality now, and we have to work through that in order to move beyond that. So that's kind of just touching a bit upon some of the things that you said. We knew it was so important to have a unified space because race purposely creates separation, across all different types of communities, and there's no middle ground for healing.
Yeah, so we in Reveal to Heal, in the first 2 weeks, we do have separate containers for people carrying white privilege and BIPOC, Black and Indigenous people of colour. That's so we can allow safe processing, understanding that for a lot of people of colour especially, they don't feel safe engaging with white people, especially in the realm of healing, initially. And then through our work in weeks 1 and 2, which is all about kind of excavating the conditioning around race and the programming, which is intentionally created to enhance and anchor in race-based separation and difference in the way we perceive and relate to each other. And then we move into healing in the second week, where we're doing a lot of ancestral clearing and going into our bodies and releasing trauma from ourselves, of unconsciousness, or of embedded kind of race-based harm that we might have experienced depending on our the skin that we're in. Then that allows all groups of people, those carrying white privilege and those who have differing shades of skin. Obviously there's a huge spectrum of skin color within the kind of group of BIPOC, but so people carrying different forms of race-based trauma, to everyone from all perspectives to do the work, and then to come into unity in the final week from a space of, okay, well, we've done some of the clearing necessary for us to be able to meet each other in a space of love and with intention to further shed any layers of separation based on race, with the understanding that unity is fundamental to any kind of end of racism. We have to hold the vision for what we want to see, what we want to create, and that is unity. So it isn't, some people say, oh, it's white people created race, so it's their job to to dismantle it, and I think that it's true that white people need to take on a huge portion of the work to dismantle the structures internally and externally. But if we want to actually move into a society that isn't shaped in this such a clear way by race and skin color, then everyone has to do the work. We can't, white people alone can't do it. People of color have to heal from the trauma of racism and from race, and they have to forgive eventually, not to rush forgiveness, because you can't, that will bypass the healing process. But in time, there has to be the intention to let go as well of the part of us that's internalized these structures and that's holding onto them and anchoring them in from over preoccupation with our trauma, where sometimes, you know, this happens in lots of different fields of trauma. We can become attached and identified with our wound, and, you know, we can be in the kind of the victim energy where we want people to acknowledge and see us and hear our pain and feel our pain and be like, you know, see me, and like, this is real and it hurts, and that's a valid part of the healing process. But ultimately, if we don't move out of that, and this is with any trauma, then ultimately we never get to healing and completion. So we constantly stay in that space of our trauma, and we never really allow ourselves to move forward from it. It's the part that we have the power over, you know, which is the way that we're relating to it, the beliefs we've taken on as a result of the trauma, the conditioning that we've internalized in our mind that we can clear, the energy that we've taken on in our body of anger or resentment or you know, whatever it is. You know, trauma manifests in so many ways, but it's a whole humanity process, right? Like, collective liberation means everyone gets liberated. So it means white people get liberated from racism and being racist unconsciously and being complicit and being indoctrinated and being unconsciously part of the system of white supremacy, and people of color get liberated from being oppressed by it and also upholding it in some ways, you know, by not kind of being wanting to heal and move forward and not wanting to you know, unify with white people too. And yeah, like, there are so many complexities to it. It's not as simple as just white and people and people of color, and, you know, but just to give a sense of what's needed, you know. So that's really why this container came through. And yeah, it feels like it was really definitely a very unique offering, and it feels definitely bigger than us, like a lot bigger than us. We really were the channels for this, and we've been holding the container with our love and with our consciousness, but it really has a life of its own, and it has a very powerful frequency for humanity that we're so honored that so many people have been able to come and attune to and really kind of level up and transform and get activated through communing with this energy, which is ultimately kind of a taste of the energy needed for unity and liberation to manifest in this dimension, not just in the higher realms. And yeah, the course feels really special because we really kind of encoded it with that multidimensionality. So people are doing real world 3D actions to kind of be part of kind of dismantling these imbalanced power structures and redistributing resources, and using people with privilege, using themselves as support for people of color. And also there's a lot of learning and resources to kind of expand the mind and the consciousness, and there's loads of embodiment practice as well to get into the heart, to open the heart, to get into the body, to move the body, to clear energy from the body and the field. So we really try and work people on all levels, and it's been so beautiful to receive people going through that experience and having so many different, you know, layers come up that they didn't even know were there. We feel really honored to have been able to hold space for this work in this way.
Can I ask you, what would you say would be the most like surprising feedback that you got from any of the participants within the course?
I mean, we knew the work would be powerful. We knew it would be really powerful. Like, we encoded the container for that, but we've had people coming to us saying like they've been completely reborn through this process, and saying, you know, that they've done loads of healing work, you know, over sort of decades, and that this has been some of the most transformational work that they've ever experienced. And there's this one woman in particular who really stands out to us, and it's completely changed everything for her. She's a white-bodied woman, and she's completely closed down her business as a result of the work, and she's now recreating her business in a whole new way, completely kind of in resonance with the work she's done in Reveal to Heal. And she's also moved countries, gone back to her ancestral land, sold her house, you know, is completely living and breathing this work. And it's just, such an amazing example of how you can really take anti-racist work and a kind of pro-unity work, deconditioning from racial kind of conditioning and the race illusion, and it affects all areas of your life, you know, like it's so deeply aligned for all of us, right? And it's a big part of all of our purpose, you know, in different ways. But when we show up to the work, whoever we are, wherever we are, it will leave us deeply changed. And, it, you know, as we lean into it and open to it.
Ancestral work within the course seemed to be the most powerful work that we had done. especially for the white body participants, because one of the major things that came up in the course was that one of the reasons why there's a lot of cultural appropriation in the spiritual community, where there's a lot of kind of whitewashing, sort of like, you know, the face of spirituality seems to be very white. If we look at the kind of scene of spirituality, and most of the practices that are practiced in these spaces come from indigenous land. You know, they are either practices that, you know, kind of originate in Asia, or from Africa, or from South America. They're from indigenous land. You know, they don't usually originate from sort of white-bodied people. And one of the amazing things that we did in the course was tuning white people into their own ancestry and learning about their own ancestry to find ways where they can connect to their own ancestral wisdom, which was a massive, massive piece. Because, there's one resource which we shared in the course, which basically talks about how whiteness is disembodiment, and how, you know, by people kind of labeling themselves as white and having this label given on them, it kind of erases some of their own heritage, where they actually they're not as in tune with their heritage as per se people of color are or have been. So it was extremely transformative to hear so many white body participants saying how profound it was for them to connect to their ancestors. It's something they actually haven't done before. You know, a lot of the practices which they would have practiced would have been from different lineages. It wouldn't have been from their direct timeline. So it was quite profound for us to see how that was such a major thing for not just for the BIPOC participants, but also for the white body participants, because it was a massive, massive piece, which we uncovered, which highlighted to us where a lot of the work needs to be done within the I would say the white bodied community, but people who are carrying white privilege.
That's so great to just hear from the inside out what it can create and what it can transform, and also how frank you have to be about, you know, appropriation is such a fine line, because some people will kind of like portray it as homage, when the people whose culture it comes from actually feel like something's been taken from them. And, you know, specifically when you feel that there's not much avenue for you to have expression and freedom in society, then to have the one little things that are yours, you know, the hairstyle, the songs, the way you move or whatever, then being taken on by those who seem to have all of the opportunities, does feel like a complete does feel like a diss, an insult, as it were. But then the way that you put it is like, I suppose you would only ever take from something else if you didn't notice where you could actually have it in your own lineage. So that's actually brought something to my mind that maybe I didn't even think of. So thank you for that. And I'm also mindful of your time as well. And I just wanted to kind of just touch on the questions at the end. And the first question I always ask my guests is, what is the best piece of advice a woman's ever given to you? But I'm going to open it up. Like I said, I'm changing the way that her conversation works now. What is the best piece of advice anybody has ever given to you?
I can't think of like a specific person or anything. I mean, I guess like, you know, like someone who's had influence over me, like, you know, my dad used to, you know, it's not something that like I've consciously been like, this is the best piece of advice anyone's ever given to me, but it's something that stood out to me. And you know, it's actually resonates with me more and more, I guess, the older I get. He said, you know, all that matters is that you're happy, you know. It's like, you know, but obviously, and happiness is a complex thing, but for me, like, you know, the more I kind of have journeyed through life, and, you know, I'm connecting more and more to the importance of being in joy and like creating a life that you like love, and, you know, that you can really get behind and be like, this is actually what feeds my soul. And I remember him being like, saying to me, for example, when I was young and sort of trying to find my purpose, he's like, well, you know what, you're so passionate about music, and you're always like helping people, like all your friends, they all come to you for advice, and, you know, you're always doing that, so surely you should do something with these things, you know. Even though the logical part of him sometimes would try and steer me in other directions, there was a part of him was like, so passionate about music, you know, that surely that's what you should be doing with your life. And then you're always helping people, like, you know, you're always giving people advice and support, like maybe you should be like a therapist or something, you know. And that wasn't him, he wasn't aware. And now obviously I do like sound healing, and like I coach people, and I like help people to connect themselves and process their emotions, and sound is a huge part of the work that I do. So those things have definitely married. But my dad just being like, you know, follow your joy, and the thing that kind of gives you that sense of fulfillment and deep peace and contentment. And like those are threads that have been through my life, you know, the whole, you know, for a very, very long time, long before I ever had any awakening, or even before I ever really thought that kind of sound or music or like healing would be my life purpose or what I do, you know. So the seeds have always been there. And so following your joy, really following your sense of like, you know, happiness and contentment and peace, like, you know, really it's been a really crucial thing for me, even though I wasn't consciously always like, that advice is what's made me choose X, Y, and Z. And there's been a constant sense of like return to like, yeah, but do I feel happy and at peace right now in the way I'm living my life? Like, how can I structure my life and get into even more alignment with my joy? And I feel like naturally, if we all do that, we come into service in some way, because we're so interdependent, and we're all here to be in community and to be of service to humanity. So all of us have something to give and want to give that thing, you know. And then, you know, we're not here just to get to kind of be happy in ourselves, just for ourselves, and that's it. And like, I just gotta make myself so happy. When we make ourselves so happy, we naturally want to spread that energy. And like, I feel fulfilled and I feel an overflow. And you could have this too, and like take some of this extra energy that I have from my own place of fulfillment and alignment. So yeah, I think I'd love to just honor my dad for that. And it's nice to I'm grateful for the question and the chance to reflect, because, you know, I wouldn't have necessarily thought that piece of advice, but actually, yeah, that's really been a big one for me. Yeah. Anything else come to you now, Reuben?
Yeah. I guess I'm just tuning into, you know, early on in our journey, me and Nyahsa's journey, a lot of time I would say things like, you know, I'm not feeling aligned to do this thing now, or I can't do that. I don't do that. You know, I haven't learned that before. You know, I'm not going to be able to do that sort of thing. And Nyahsa would always just say to me, like, you're a constantly evolving being. Like, you are not, you're not stagnant. You know, you're always changing and transforming. And that really helped me to definitely be more open to like my own growth and tune into the reality that I'm always changing and evolving, whether I'm aware of it or not. And it really definitely opened my mind up to being more confident in doing things that I'd never done before. Kind of tuning into like music and sound and stuff. I definitely came from the mindset before of like, I can't do anything if I haven't learned it and perfected it. Like, if I haven't perfected something, I'm not ready to show it to anybody, because, you know, my ego is too involved and I don't want to be seen as I'm not good at this thing, or I can't, like, you know, do this, especially with like instruments and stuff. I feel like I can't, you know, play an instrument if I haven't like mastered it, if I'm not really, really good. And Nyahsa comes from more of the mindset of like, you know, instruments have a life of their own, and they want to be like the way a child would play with an instrument. That's how you kind of learn it, and you can tune into the energy of the instrument, and you're co-creating experience with the instrument, not you just like playing an instrument like it's a stagnant thing. It's like it actually has a life of its own. And that really helped me to change my relationship to music and come away from the kind of performative, kind of ego-based reality of like sound, and how a lot of people want to be seen as being good at music, or knowing good music, or being able to play like, you know, amazingly. And it took it away from being like a self-centered thing, and being much more of like service, and just honoring how the instrument wants to be used in that moment, and using any skill or talent I may have, completely not for any self-validation, just to transmit the sound, you know. And that was something that was really really quite transformative for me. But yeah, I just tuned into it, and Nyahsa still says it sometimes. She, you know, if I say I can't do this, or like I'm not doing that, you know, Nyahsa will give the third option. She'll give the third option, the pathway that I'm choosing not to see, you know. And that's extremely valuable to know that we're always growing, whether we're aware of it or not, and it's whether we're open to the growth in that specific moment. And to highlight the block, and also not identify with the block, because it's very easy to be like, I don't do this or I can't do that, and I have this wound, or this is what's blocking me and I'm not going to see pass through that. There's a lot of, you can be very adamant and resistant. So to have the awareness that you're always changing, you're always evolving, and you're always growing, it creates that space for you to surrender into that space of growth. And I feel like for whoever you are in life, that is very integral to your learning and your growth. And just tuning in now to like being a parent and stuff, that's the sort of thing that we're definitely going to be exposing our child to as much as possible. It's like, you're growing, like, you might not be able to do that now, but the more you go in, you go into that and you explore and you allow yourself to explore, you'll find what is destined for you. And it's just that explorative sort of childlike essence which we don't want to lose, as even as we grow up. So yeah, that's the sort of what's coming to me now.
Amazing. And let me just say, as a musician who like went through all the channels and all the papers and everything, some of the times when I'm composing, the best times I come up with the best ideas are when I'm making mistakes, or so don't even worry about whether you can play or not. Sometimes people can just play one note and play it in such a way that you can play it much better than someone who knows all the tricks and the turns. It's definitely about where you're feeling and being able to imbue your feeling into the way that you just transmit that one note. People play the gong or the triangle, and you can feel it from that. So it's definitely more of an intention and a transmission thing than being skilled at it. The skill will come if you want it to. You don't have to know all the stuff. It's not about that. And I enjoy your Instagram stories as well. So don't I think I get so entertained by watching you two guys. It's lovely. Yeah. And then just before you leave, what have you got coming up for yourselves now as well? Is there a new round of Reveal to Heal coming up, or do you have any other offerings that you want to speak about?
Yeah, so we'll be offering Reveal to Heal again, probably I think at the start of next year as a live course, but we think we'll probably release it with all of the recordings from both rounds once more this year for anyone who kind of wants to work through it at their own pace. And if you do that, then you'll get access to both all of the healing sessions and the workshops, which have been all super amazing but also really different in some ways. So that's kind of Reveal to Heal side. And then we have one more offering which we're very excited to share, which is happening in November. It's another course, a 3-week course, which is timed to be in the energy of the 1111 portal. So we'll be starting on the 1st and going to the 22nd, and there'll be 3 quantum activations on the 1st, on the 11th, which is the 1111 highest energy point, and on the 22nd. And throughout that there'll be kind of different content every other day to support people in really just embracing 2020 as a chance to quantum leap into alignment with their highest soul potential, their highest vibration of healing, of service, of love and liberation that they can offer to the collective in this time, right? So we're really calling people into deep, deep integrity with earth, with their highest self, calling people to really embrace their capacity to level up in service and shed the layers that have been binding them and blocking them and keeping them hiding or playing small or not really full body, going after their dreams and having the highest impact they can have on earth. So calling in those people that are kind of on the edge of stepping into their path of service, and also those that are already in service but are really ready to just full body dive into their path and level up their impact, level up their abundance, level up their capacity to be in embodiment of their own unique essence, their own unique channel, their own unique flow. So this will be another really multi-dimensional offering. It's very much an activation, and we'll be doing lots of recoding of the subconscious mind. We'll be visioning, we'll be clearing and healing and activating all of our different bodies, our light body, our physical body. It's going to be a powerful offering. I'm just tuning into it now. I can just feel the vibration of it. It's just so super powerful. So we'll be releasing details about that in the coming weeks, but we have a wait list already with quite a few people on it because it's already magnetizing people, the vibration. So if anyone who's listening feels to join us, you're most welcome. We'd love to journey with you. And just make sure that we leave 2020 feeling like we really took a quantum leap towards our own alignment, because there's a lot of other things that have come up and we've kind of got pulled in lots of different directions. So we're really wanting to kind of consolidate that energy and direct it consciously, because there's so much power and real kind of surges of kind of expansion and ascension energy coming to earth right now, that when we consciously kind of tap in and harness and direct our energy with our intention, we can really kind of ride that wave in a way that really feels clearly in alignment with our expansion and with our deep embodiment of our purpose and our soul frequency. So that's what this year has been for us. We've really expanded our reach. We've got loads of new followers. We've made lots more money than we were able to do before. We've reached loads more souls. We've really been able to spread our energy and our purpose in a whole new way by riding these waves, and we really want to support others to do the same this year. So yeah, that's our final offering of 2020, which we're really excited about. And yeah, just thank you so much for inviting us to share with you. We've really enjoyed connecting and sharing about our work, and thank you for your questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been really beautiful sharing space with you.
And before you go, guys, can you just quickly let everybody know where they can find you? And also I want to say thank you for just having a positive spin on 2020, because so many people are just like, oh my God, 2020. But you've really kind of taken the energy of what's underlying all of this and like transformed it into what it can be. So yeah, if just let everybody know where we can find you on social and email address, everything like that.
So you can follow us at the Ascension Seed. So that's TheAscension, and then Seed, SEED. So that's us on Instagram. We're also on Facebook at just the Ascension Seed. If you want to email us, it's connect@theascensionseed.com. And yeah, if you are interested in Revealed Heal, we'll have free spaces for people who are racialized as Black. That will be happening in 2021, probably in the first few months. So you can email us if you want to claim a free space, and we can add you to the wait list for that as well. And I think that's everything.
Yeah, that's pretty much everything.
Yeah, and if you are resonating with what Carol just shared about 2020 and you haven't had the best year and you actually are feeling a bit put out, join us in our course in November and you will leave feeling that 2020 has been something different completely, because we really want to remind people that shadow work and density and darkness are an opportunity to expand into our power and our light and our love, and we have to go through all of the stages of the work to arrive there. So you have to confront all the things that are coming up and that are in the way. So please do join us if you're ready to elevate through the difficulty and the challenge and the contrast of this year and align with your highest 2020 timeline. Thank you so much, Carol.
Perfectly stated, Reuben. Nyahsa, thank you so much for today.
No worries, thank you so much.
Thank you, it's been so good.
Many thanks to Nyahsa and Reuben for joining me on this episode of Her Conversations, and thank you for listening. You can discover more about me by visiting my website, which is carolmaywhittick.com, and carolmaywhittick.com. You can also find me on social media under the same name on Facebook and on Twitter, Parler and Instagram under Casmic, that's CAZMICK. Once again, thank you for listening. Have a great week. See you in the next one. Bye.